In 1993, director John Woo brought us one of cinema's greatest ever mullets in the form of Jean-Claude Van Damme's Hard Target. Now, in 2016, we have a sequel to that movie directed by Royal Rene, and this one stars Scott Adkins, sadly minus the mullet, Robert Nebber, who you may know from TV's Prison Break, and one-time Lara Croft, Rona Mitra. Now, in case you are unawares of the original movie, I'll basically go through the plot of this one and pretty much the original one as well. So basically it focuses on a group of super rich people who are bored with their lives and kind of want that extra kick out of life. So what they do is they kidnap people and then hunt them in big game hunts. Now, in this particular movie, they basically recruit Scott Adkins' ex-MMA fighter, who is kind of on a self-imposed exile after killing his best friend in the ring accidentally. And basically, he's duped into becoming this kind of this hard target for this group of interesting sort of characters, all of whom we know have got different backgrounds and stuff like that, on a hunt with obviously the goal of escaping with his life and obviously having this kind of bag full of rubies if he succeeds. And thus begins the hunt. So what do I think about Hard Target 2? Well, let's talk about the negatives first of all, and then we'll come on to the positives. Negatives first of all. It takes a little while to get going, this film, I have to say. We don't really feel like you're getting to see the hunt until a sort of a good portion of the film. There are a few fight scenes beforehand though, so it's not like a completely action-free initial part of the movie, but nonetheless, the actual hunt seems to come a little later than I would have thought. The main issue I had with this film is the love interest that they kind of Scott Adkins' character just randomly happens to bump into this attractive girl walking around in the jungle, and of course there is sparks that fly, and basically there's a few scenes with her that absolutely grind the movie to a halt. By far and away, they're kind of the biggest faux pas in my opinion. The other thing I would say is there are a few kind of instances where this movie kind of goes into cheesy B-movie action territory and completely disregards the laws of physics. Just for one example, we see a character who is getting shot by about 30 guys with machine guns, and they're all like shooting at him, and just behind him there's a couple of other people, and there's no stray bullets go through the body or miss him. It's stuff like that basically. And on the other hand, obviously we have a few sequences where people are kind of running away from people with machine guns, and they're kind of firing at them, and again, not one sort of bullet will hit the target. Stuff like that, which is kind of typical that you would see in action films of the kind of the 90s and the kind of maybe the late 80s and things like that. That I feel that today's audiences just question that a little bit. So it's a little bit of a throwback, so depending on who you are, that might be a good or a bad thing. But I think more modern audiences are a little bit more discerning about the kind of the tropes that may have been popular in the kind of 93, for example. But it is a kind of cheesy B-movie. Some of the characters are a little bit cartoonish. It kind of works, though. I have to say that some of the kind of the hunters, for example, are a little bit flamboyant or a little bit kind of OTT. Although it is kind of a bit cheesy and a little bit OTT, it kind of works in the context. It is almost a kind of comic bookish style movie. Come on to the positives here. I have to say the biggest positive for me was the location shooting here, which was absolutely fantastic. It's all shot on location in Thailand, and my god, there are some absolutely beautiful shots here, and it really benefits from this kind of this lush background, and there are a few excellent kind of like money shots here. I'd say for the most part the directing here is pretty good, other than the kind of the overall cheesiness. But I will say this is actually going to go back to a slight negative that I kind of forgot to mention. The director here seems to ape John Woo a little bit. Now, obviously, the original movie was a John Woo film, but I don't feel John Woo is quite as relevant as he is today than he was back in those days. I don't feel audiences now are all that familiar, certainly younger audiences anyway. So rather than kind of aping John Woo style, we'll see a lot of shots of doves and slow-mo and stuff like that. It would have been nice to have a bit more of a unique voice, if that makes sense. But anyway, back onto the positives. There is a lot of fight scenes here, all of which are kind of quite varied, and I have to say, pretty well choreographed. I thought they were all pretty good. Scott Adkins makes for a likeable lead. I question why they would have an MMA fighter, not someone from the military. That would make more sense to me, but there you go. But he makes, there's some great action sequences involving him. You know, and they're fun. This is a fun movie, and that's the main thing. Although it is kind of cheesy, although it is kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense in some places, overall there is definite amount of cheesy B-movie action goodness here. And I have to say, I quite enjoy this. It moves at a good old pace once we get into the hunt, and even before that, even though it takes a while. Like I said, there are a few action sequences, and I really kind of like some of the the peripheral characters, the hunters. There's this kind of Spanish bullfighter who I think was one of probably my favourite. I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see a sword fight with him and Adkins' character, but kind of everything. You got Rona Mitra basically, who's this kind of this kind of femme fatale, and she has a pretty good action sequence, as I got to say, and it ends up being pretty harsh. That's all I'm saying. So overall, I have to say this was a pretty fun B-movie. I kind of enjoyed it. If you like the original Hard Target, you're pretty much going to like this, I would say. If you are more of a discerning, millennial, basically, who maybe has kind of got used to more of the modern way of doing an action film, then I feel this may not be the movie for you. Overall, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I actually kind of have had a bit of fun with it. Good action movie, a throwback to to yesteryear, and go check it out. Let me know what you think. Bye for now.